Hey guys, AJ here. Today we'll discuss artifact sets. We'll go through all currently available artifact sets that are at least remotely useful for Keqing, and work out a tier list with the top 3 artifact set choices and combinations for the physical and electro build. The goal is to give you a better idea which sets are worth grinding for once you reach endgame. In general, I can no longer recommend refilling your resin for artifact grinds before AR45. I myself spent most of my fragile resin at AR40 and I would not do it again. At AR40 you get a 5-star artifact around every 3 artifact domain runs. At AR45 you get 1 5-star artifact guaranteed per run with a small chance of getting a second one at that. I just hit AR45 myself and it's a day and night difference. This video focuses mainly on set effects, so in case you didn't watch my other guides, here's a short recap on which stats you should ultimately be looking for on your artifacts. For main stats, Flower and Feather are always going to be flat HP and flat attack respectively. For the Sands of Aeon slot, you'll always want attack percent. For the Goblet slot, you'll want physical damage for a physical build and electro damage for an electro build. For the Circlet, as a rule of thumb, you'll want a crit rate main stat to leverage your naturally higher crit damage, or a crit damage main stat if you're using the Black Sword or any other weapon that gives crit rate already. But it also depends a bit on your substats. The goal is to maintain a 1:2 ratio between your crit rate and damage for maximum value. An example would be 60% crit rate and 120% crit damage. Potentially even a bit more crit damage because your ultimate grants you another 15% crit rate once you activate it. For substats, look out for crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent as the most important ones, then flat attack, and lastly elemental mastery for more reaction damage, or energy recharge for more uptime on your ult. Don't forget that you cannot get your main stat again as a substat on the same item. You should also know that at endgame, you're really only going to be considering 5-star artifacts if you want to maximize your stats. Not only do they have higher main stat values, but even the substats roll higher than on 3 and 4-star artifacts. Right now you may still be thinking, how on earth am I gonna get all those 5-star artifacts? But like I said before, as soon as you hit AR45, you're going to see at least 1 per every artifact domain run that you clear. Right now the game's only been out for a month and a bit, but very soon 5-star artifacts are going to be the norm for everyone. That's important to know because many artifact sets do not exist at 5-star rarity. So those sets are then usually not worth actively grinding for because you'd be missing out on a bunch of raw stats. This means that all of these artifact sets right here are automatically disqualified for a finalized endgame build because no matter how good their set effects look on paper, these are all capped at 4-star rarity and just cannot compete with 5-star artifacts. This is not to say that these sets are inherently bad. Some of them are really nice, so if you already have these sets, by all means keep using them for now. They are great artifacts to have as you slowly transition into better 5-star sets. All I want to say is that none of these are worth chasing and spending resin for. If you get them naturally, that's great, but there are other sets that you'll want to be trading your resin for in the future, so hold on to all of your refills until your AR45. What are those actually viable sets then? The first is the Gladiator set that you get from weekly bosses, world bosses after AR35, and normal progression through the game such as the Adventurer Handbook. The 2-piece effect gives 18% attack, which is always good to have. The 4-piece effect gives a 35% damage increase to your normal attacks. This may seem good at first glance, however normal attacks are not charged attacks, and those are where you get a big chunk of your damage from no matter which build you go for. It also doesn't do anything for your abilities, so it's definitely not an option for Electro Keqing. For the physical build, you can use it, but then you'd mostly want to be using normal attacks to make optimal use of this set, which means you'd be missing out on the higher multiplier on your charged attacks. But that in turn would also allow you to spend very little stamina during combat, which could be good. Overall though, there are better options, even for a physical build, and I do not recommend going for the 4-piece effect of this set. The 2-piece effect, however, is universally useful and can be combined with many of the other endgame sets. Next up, we have the Noblesse set. This one gives a 20% damage increase to your ultimate, which means that this set is useful only once every 12 seconds at best, and the 4-piece effect provides an attack buff for your teammates, so it's more of a support set. Unless you're playing your Keqing as a support DPS where you only ever use her once every 12 seconds to pop her ult and then swap out again, this set is not worth getting for her. It is, however, one of the best sets you can get for your support units, Xingqiu being the most popular right now, but we'll cover him in a separate video. Then we have Bloodstained Chivalry. The 2-piece effect gives 25% physical damage, which is great for a physical build. The 4-piece effect must be amazing if you can activate it, and that's what's problematic about this set. It's very conditional. You need to kill something first before you get a 50% damage increase to your charged attacks at 0 stamina cost for 10 seconds. This set effect will not help you against single bosses out in the world or even some abyss stages, but may perform extremely well in scenarios where there are many smaller enemies. It's very powerful, but it's also very dependent on external factors. So in general, I cannot recommend getting the 4-piece set as your first priority. You could, however, combine the 2-piece set effect with the 2-piece Gladiators for a solid 18% attack and 25% physical damage bonus. The next set is an interesting one. It's the Retracing Bolide set that is actually one of the 2 currently available Geo sets. The reason this one is relevant even for us is that its 4-piece set effect grants a 40% damage increase to normal and charged attacks. For this bonus, it doesn't matter if you're dealing physical or electro damage with your normal and charged attacks, but again, it's less of an option for the electro build because it doesn't do anything for your abilities. For the physical build though, this may very well be the best set currently available in terms of damage. In order to make use of this set though, you need a shield to be active on you. The easiest way to do that would be to put Noelle in your team, who we all have, press E and swap back. This set basically provides the same bonus as the Martial Artist set, but at 5-star rarity. The problem here is that you rely on another unit to give you a shield, plus you have to make sure that you don't take too much damage, because if the shield breaks, you'll no longer have the damage bonus. In my opinion, this set is rather easy to activate, but in the end it's still quite conditional. Finally, there are the Thundersoother and Thundering Fury sets as our current endgame options for an electro build. Thundering Fury grants a 15% electro damage bonus for the 2-piece effect, which is exactly what we want. The 4-piece effect grants a bunch of additional reaction damage, and instead of a straightforward damage increase that we see on the Pyro and the not yet released Cryo version of this set, it gives cooldown reduction on our E ability. I really like the idea of this set. Giving us more casts of our elemental skill means not only more damage, but also much more mobility, and the gameplay with this set is a lot of fun. The problem is that this cooldown reduction is very conditional. With the Pyro set, all you have to do to get your damage bonus is press E. With the Cryo set, all you'll have to do is press Q, and that's it. The effect of our set is dependent on elemental reactions. But not only that, we also have to be the one triggering those elemental reactions. This really hampers its universality, making it so that you either have to fight the correct enemies, which sounds ridiculous, meaning Cryo or Pyro Slimes, because there you get free elemental reactions whenever you deal electro damage to them, or you need to have somebody else in your party to first apply another element to your enemies. Ideally, you'd want someone who can apply that other element consistently over time, but still in a way that allows you to be the one triggering the reactions. And that's where it just gets really tangled up and inconsistent because you don't have much control over that. 3 major options come to mind. Kaya for Superconduct, but that reduces physical defense by 50% and we're playing Electro, so why would we use Kaya? Then we have Xiangling for Pyro. She has great elemental reaction potential, but most of the time it's still a toss-up whether it's you or her triggering those overloads. And in my opinion, Overload just doesn't feel that great to play, because I hate having to chase after exploding enemies. That leaves Xingqiu for Electrocharged, and this one is surprisingly in a very good spot, because right now, Keqing is always the one triggering the reaction, even in cases where technically she applies her element first. That, however, is a bug that's been acknowledged by MiHoYo and will see a fix in 1.1. We're not entirely sure yet how hard exactly the synergy is going to get hit by these changes, but even if it means bad news for the Thundering Fury set, Xingqiu himself is probably still going to be the strongest support for Keqing even after the patch, so if you don't have him yet, consider getting him from the Klee banner while it's there. The Thundersoother set grants 40% electro resistance and a 35% damage increase to enemies afflicted with electro. Similar to the Lion's Roar, you'll have downtime on this damage increase if you're fighting enemies that you cannot apply electro to, but against enemies that can be afflicted with electro, it's surprisingly flexible. For example, as long as you can maintain the electro status on your enemy, it doesn't even matter what type of damage you're dealing. You could be doing electro damage, but also physical damage and still benefit from the damage increase. This is especially useful against electro slimes that are permanently afflicted with electro. Here you can just walk up to them, deal physical damage, and still get the 35% bonus damage on top. Another thing with this set is that not only your currently active character can make use of it, but even your support units that are dealing damage off-screen. You could slap this set on your support Xingqiu, activate his ult, and as long as the electro status doesn't disappear from your enemies, which it doesn't right now, but again we're not sure if this is going to change with 1.1, all of his swords will deal 35% bonus damage. Due to the fact that it performs rather poorly against other slimes though, and the fact that there are many of those slimes on higher floors of the Abyss, it may be best to just go for 2 Thundering Fury and 2 Gladiators for now, because that combination gives you the most unconditional boost to your damage. To summarize, for the physical build, I'd go for 2 Gladiators and 2 Bloodstained Chivalry, because it gives you very good damage, and if you're lucky, you'll only have to grind 2 usable Bloodstained Chivalry pieces, as you'll likely already have enough Gladiator pieces to choose from. Number 2 goes to 4-piece Retracing Bolide. With this one you will deal more damage than with number 1, but it's harder to farm since you need 4 usable pieces of this set, and it's much more conditional in that you rely on maintaining a shield, and on another unit to give you that shield to begin with. Number 3 is the 4-piece Gladiators. It deals much less damage than the other 2 because it doesn't do anything for our charge attacks, but if you already have the pieces, just from normal progression, you can definitely use it. For the Electro build, number 1 goes to 2 Thundering Fury and 2 Gladiators for solid, unconditional performance across the board and especially in the Abyss. Number 2 goes to 4-piece Thundersoother because it gives the highest damage and best performance for anything outside of certain Abyss floors. Even if you're only interested in Thundering Fury, you should still keep any pieces with usable stats because you'll thank yourself once you hit AR45. That's when you unlock the highest level of Midsummer Courtyard, which is where you go to grind both of these sets. Thundersoother is without question the best set to have for clearing this stage. The enemies here deal massive amounts of electro damage, so the extra electro resistance really helps. Also, since here you're fighting electro slimes, the 4-piece set effect is basically permanently active. All you will need is a physical damage goblet, and you'll be able to deal with these slimes just fine. If you have heavily invested into pyro units that could carry you through this stage, then you're maybe less reliant on this set. But if you're like me and you really only have one well-built electro DPS unit, Thundersoother is going to help you out a lot here. Number 3 goes to 4-piece Thundering Fury. Even though it's the most fun to play and shines against cryo and pyro slimes, and in combination with Xingqiu, it falls short of Thundersoother in every other matchup / team comp, which is why it's down here for now. I really hope they buff this set, maybe make it less dependent on external factors, and just give us more control over the effect like they did with the Pyro and the Cryo set. Anyway, that's it for this video. As always, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, let me know down below, and thank you for watching.